I'm Sarah, this is Kendra, and yes, we are the mad data engineers from Rover, as you've heard. So first I'm going to start, we're going to talk about our data journey today. So I'm going to start a little bit about us and where we came from, our background, and talk a little bit about Rover. Yep, we both were data analysts in a former life, and now we're data engineers. So it's very exciting for us because when we were data analysts, we had wants and needs from the data engineering team. And now that we're the data engineers, we get to make it how we wanted it. So for us, it's all about empowering the data analysts and the data scientists. And these are some of the ways that we do that, right? So we try to focus on really building tooling for them. We try to focus on supporting them and having scaffolding for them, and really making sure that everybody in the organization can use and leverage data, that there's no waiting on a BI team to get your reports. Everyone can access the data. So a little bit about me and my background. I used to be a high school math teacher. I taught algebra and geometry classes. In 2013, I joined Trupanion. They're a pet insurance company, also in Seattle. So pets, obviously, a big thing for me. That's where I cut my analytical teeth. So I got to do a lot of work on pricing the product. I was involved in the actuary side of the world, and I was doing business intelligence, learned a lot about Excel, programming spreadsheets, and so forth, and eventually came to Rover in 2016 and started as the first data engineer there. Something that I've taken both to Trupanion and Rover is my teaching background, actually. So at Trupanion, I was able to have like an Excel office hours and Excel 101 class and curriculum that I ran for people and helped them learn their skills. So I'm really passionate about taking the science of how people learn and applying the same kind of dedication and rigor to that study that I would to any technical skill that I bring to the table. And Kendra.
We're trying to do the dance so we stay off to the right and not get the screen. Yeah, this will help. So my name's Kendra. I joined Rover about 4 years ago. I started off life as a naval flight officer and ended up teaching statistics at the Naval Academy. So we have that similar kind of training or mentorship kind of background going throughout. I moved over to Amazon, both in the finance and then the outbound transportation. And I really enjoyed seeing how users were able to leverage data at scale. And I brought that over to the Rover team. I started off in the ops world and was thrilled, as a data nerd, I was thrilled to see the adoption of of everybody really digging into their own data. As I moved over, I worked directly for our COO, and he made the statement that everyone will know SQL, and you're going to get there, and you're going to get there quick, because he likes to refresh reports really quickly, and he wanted a lot of them. When the opportunity opened up to move over to the data engineering team, I jumped at it. Similar to Sarah, I wanted to be able to provide the data that I was consuming, but I also wanted more and more and more of the data, so it was just self-serving in that respect. And of course, our dogs. How many dog owners do we have here? All right. How many Rover users do we have here? Okay, we've got some coupons of your promo codes if you want some. So these are our lovely, lovely pups. This is Mr. Willie, Sarah's dog, and then mine too on the right, Sadie and Beauregard. He's 5 months old and he's still growing into the name, so he goes by Beau because he loses concentration halfway through his name. And here are the rest of the Rover dogs. So in any day in the office, we have around 50 to 60 dogs roaming around. We've got a nice network of cages that we attempt to navigate through and not break any limbs. It works out mostly. We get like one injury per year, not too bad. So we're the largest pet sitting and dog walking app. We're in over 10,000 cities and more recently launched in the UK. There was a great pool party. Look it up, it's really fun. Dachshund in goggles and in a little floaty thing. And we're currently at 375 employees and expect to grow a third again before the year's end. What month are we in? October? Okay, we're gonna do it. So we're hiring. We're hiring engineers, analysts, data scientists. If you want to join us, dogs, rover.com/careers. Okay, that's my HR plug. So yeah, here's a snapshot of all of our dogs. And it really does we move quickly and work really hard, but having the dogs in the office really helps us kind of chill out a little bit. I'm not pushing the right buttons, I think. Okay. So to give you some background into what our users, and when I say users here, I mean the internal Rover users, our group of 375 SQL aficionados. They're there to support a two-sided marketplace. So think of Airbnb, Uber, anything like that. As a dog or cat owner, you would go onto our site, you would select which type of service you would need, so either in your home or in somebody else's home, the dates that you're going to be gone for, like at Alooma Connect, and your dog's size, and then click search. We've got an algorithm that will match you, will rank sitters in your area to what we think will most likely be a great pairing for you and your pup. So as far as our data culture goes, like I said, when I joined Rover 4 years ago, it came from the top down. Our whole leadership just expected that you knew SQL, that you could make all the decisions that you needed to on your own without leveraging a BI team or another analyst team, because the analyst was me, just one, which, you want to sleep sometime. And it was really exciting. So our business stakeholders are able to own that entire narrative of their whole story, so they can launch something, learn 2 days later that it's really not working, and pull back very quickly. And our COO, from our CX team up to our COO, everybody uses it, and our COO is still actually one of the top SQL Periscope users on our site, which makes it really fun when you have to worry about getting the data to him very quickly. So to kind of show that in numeric form, here are, does everybody know what Periscope is? Yeah, so that Periscope is a visualization software tool that we use that all of our users use to dig into their data. And we kind of use it as a proxy of how much reach our data is going out to across the company. If you see this really sharp spike up towards the end, this was kind of our 4 of us at the beginning of the year, or the beginning of Rover, and then as we ramped up, a third and then 300% of getting more and more people in Rover. You can see that we are massive users of all of the data. So, back to Sarah.
Oh, yep. I'm going to talk a little bit about, here we go, the data science hierarchy of needs. So this is a chart that has been going around a little bit lately, and this kind of just shows, in order to do the cool things that people want to do with data, like machine learning, you really need to have a solid foundation that you're building on. Can't put the cart before the horse, can't get to that deep learning before you've got a nice solid foundation. So this is where our team really comes in, the data Dalmatians, that's our team. We focus on the kind of lower echelons of this pyramid, and then we have another team that works kind of on the higher echelons. So we really make sure that we have reliable data, that we have it integrated, that it's fast, that people can access it and use it. So what does that look like in practice? Here we've got our data warehouse. So we are using Redshift, and pretty much all of our data pipelines right now are coming into our ecosystem into Redshift. And Alooma and Pipey are the 2 main ones here. We have a little bit Kinesis coming in too, but Alooma, of course, and then Pipey is our in-house data pipeline that we use. And out of our data warehouse, of course, we have Periscope, like we just talked about. We have a whole bunch of different things that run out of that data warehouse. On the right side of the picture, we have some machine learning stuff that we're just starting to build. So these are kind of our nascent data science platform on the right here. And that's actually feeding back into our web app and helping make predictions on the site. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about some of these pipelines. So first of all, Alooma. I joined, like I said, in 2016 as a first data engineer, and I was an analyst and business intelligence manager up until then, so I didn't have a lot of experience with building data pipelines. Alooma made it really easy to get going. So we have probably the biggest thing that Alooma did for us early on was we were able to get our web clickstream integrated using the JavaScript SDK. It works beautifully. We had data flowing in right away, and people are able to analyze that. The code engine makes it really easy to transform that data. So we have like obfuscated IDs that we're sending through the event stream, and then in the code engine, we can deobfuscate those, make sure that all the clickstream data is well integrated by the time it lands in Redshift. The other thing about our code engine is we actually have it in as a GitHub repo, and we deploy it using BuildKite and the API. So we don't edit the code engine in the UI. We have everything version controlled and tested.
Sarah, what happens if you merge anything directly in
If
the
you
UI?
merge anything directly, you will get shipped a pregnant cat. So don't do it. No. But I think anybody who's setting up Alooma right now for the first time, it's a really good idea to kind of to do that. We really like to do test-driven code engine development. We also have a dev Alooma that we have hooked up to a dev Redshift cluster, and that lets us not worry so much about that stuff and iterate really fast and try out new integrations in an environment that's completely separate from our production data environment. So that's another thing that I would recommend if you're thinking about or getting started setting up Alooma. And we also have, we have Zendesk coming in through Alooma, and we also have some of our production application databases replicating through Alooma as well. What about the other thing in that picture? Pipey. That's the next thing I'm going to talk about. So we've got Pipey. It's short for the Rover Data Pipeline, and it runs on an ECS cluster using something called Luigi. Who knows what Luigi is? It's like a lot of people. It's like a job orchestration Python module. So lets you build robust data pipelines that will are aware of how often they've run and so forth. So we use Pipey jobs for all kinds of things, moving data in and out of the warehouse, uploading, downloading, FTP, third parties, and moving, and then also scheduling things to run within our data warehouse. So like we have a vacuum analyze job that runs, right? We have a data warehouse scheduler job that Kendra's going to talk about in more detail later. And we have data validity and freshness monitoring that we have set up in Pipey. So what does our Pipey look like? Every Pipey job starts its life as a GitHub repository. So they all are built on a base Docker image, like a Pipey base Docker image. And then everyone, of course, it has its own, every Pipey job at the end of the day has its own Docker image that when you deploy through BuildKite, it gets put into ECR. To schedule when the Pipey jobs run, we have a CloudWatch rule that triggers a Lambda that sets up task definition to start in ECS. And when the Pipey jobs run, they do their thing. They talk to the databases, they talk to this S3 bucket, and they mark their success or failure there. And then we send all the logs to Loggly. So these are a bunch of the integrations that we've done. Some are Alooma, some are Pipey, but we have a whole sea of data coming into our data warehouse that people use, and it's been really a joy. With Pipey and Alooma, we can pretty much integrate anything people want, and it's not too much trouble at this point. So that leads us to the next part of the problem, because it's not really too hard to get the data in. I don't think that's the hard part. Writing some Python, not too bad. But what's the point of having all this data if people don't know how to use it? So this is the other half, kind of the teaching, training, and evangelism, and building tooling and scaffolding for people part that we're going to go into the details next.
Great. So so the first part of that data self-service, again, there was just the two of us for a very long time while the rest of our user population grew very rapidly. And we needed to set a foundation so that they could there was like a symbiosis, and they could teach themselves and continue to learn and continue to leverage all this data that we were bringing in. So we've got a couple of setups for training. We've made some tools to make that process a little bit easier. And then when needed, we can jump in and help them build some higher level abstractions without removing the core data that they will end up needing or would like to use in the future. So the first thing is our data dojo. This is just an office hours that happens twice a week. It started off just being us data engineers that were helping any kind of a question, data question. We really love it when Excel questions come along, but we won't talk too much more about that. So this is the whole group, and we work pretty diligently to try to make that a really friendly and open environment, and people leverage it very greatly. And there is a mascot. Does anybody know the Karate Dog movie? You should check it out. It's a gem. Great. So as Sarah was talking about earlier, we've got the Pipey scheduler, Pipey framework. And one of the Pipey repos that we've got set up is this thing called the data warehouse scheduler. And once we have got people rolled into using GitHub, they can create their own scripts using it. We try to put the bar fairly low and make the barrier to entries as low as possible. And so they can use the data warehouse scheduler. We parse some YAML at the top of the file to say when this script should run, what are the dependencies, and then people just can write their SQL scripts right there. So we've removed the whole need for a specific dedicated BI team to create abstractions for our end users. They create them themselves. This is one of the most committed to repos, broadly committed to repos that we've got. And it's really fun to see it go out. So we become more of the stewards of the pipeline and less of the actioners for the daily reports. Another thing that we've created is the Rover data tools, or our data exploration notebooks. So this is Jupyter notebooks that connect to all of our Rover DB, or our databases and our data warehouse, so that people can have more of a narrative behind their data exploration. And it's sort of the entry point at which we start onboarding people into that Python knowledge. So Rover has a higher than average adoption of SQL literacy, and we want to move that up into the Python layer, because once we move it up in the Python layer, there's an endless amount of things that they'll be able to do, code engine being one of them, right? And so what's been really helpful by building out these toolings are that we can leverage the ease in which we can onboard data sources using Alooma or Pipey, and they can make any abstraction that they need, and not needing us to be both the subject matter experts for their actual area of expertise, and also, our time would be limited otherwise, and we would have to prioritize which part of the business needs our focus at any given point. And these tools help them dig in and at least create like a proof of concept, and then we can jump in and help carry it across the line. Okay. Oh, yeah.
All right, so what's next for us? Well, we'll start with a quick review of where we've been. So we have been growing really fast. Last year, we acquired our biggest competitor, Dog Vacay, and that was a very rapid growth in our size of our business. And in addition to just very quickly growing both the number of users of our site, the size of our data, and the number of people who are trying to make sense out of that data. But we've managed to maintain our data culture, and I think it is because it's democratized and decentralized to such a great degree. Yeah, with Alooma, we've been able to get a lot of data sources online quickly. And we really kind of bring, we both have this kind of spirit of a teacher that we bring, so I think that's been really valuable. And we're not focused on solving people's problems for them. We're really focused on empowering them and making sure that they have the tools that they need and the scaffolding that they need to be empowered. So what are we going to do in 2019? The number one thing, data lake. Our data is just getting too big for that Redshift cluster. We've got all this ML stuff that we're starting to do too, so we need to kind of reverse some of the flow of our data, get it coming into that S3 data lake first, and then from there into Redshift. That goes right along with the second one, supporting the machine learning platform team. Rover Data University is another one that we're both really passionate about. We've taught a few SQL 101 classes. We're just hitting our stride with that, and we're trying to get more teachers. But before we can do that, we really need to get a more solid curriculum and a measure of success or failure from people who take this class. So as people come into Rover, they don't know SQL. How do we get them to where they need to be? So we want to have a clear progression from them from being a Periscope user to being a data warehouse scheduler and Rover data tools user, and then finally to being able to go into this ML world that we're working on more and more. And so we'll have more tooling, including one thing that I think we'll be able to do in 2019 is get a Docker image together so that people don't have to worry so much about setting up their analytics environment, getting the right versions of everything installed, that we can just have a Docker image available for people to hit the ground running with that. So thank you all for coming to our I don't know
Wow, they cut you off super fast, didn't they?
Yeah. I don't know if we have time for questions or not.
Yeah, please, questions.
Sure.
I think that we made the decision to go with Periscope because there were just the two of us at that time, and Tableau was expensive, and we all knew SQL at that point, and it seemed like the easiest fit for us. Again, knowing SQL, it was a lot less expensive and easier to pick up and share.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. With Tableau, you really still need to have somebody who's kind of prepared those data sets in advance before you can use the clicky, draggy, droppy thing. So with Periscope, it gives people the full expressive power of SQL. Yes?
What are you doing for data cataloging, especially as you move into data lake and start accumulating more and more?
That's something we're thinking about a lot right now. I don't have a really solid answer besides that it's very much on our minds, and that with this democratization vision, discoverability is a really important part of that puzzle. But
we'll take suggestions.
Yes.
Do you have data governance issues as to data that's coming in that can't really be looked at by some parts of the organization?
Yes, and now that we are in the UK, we have, of course, GDPR, and we hope that the data lake is going to help us solve that as we can kind of move to more data marts, and Periscope, what's available in Periscope is going to be more limited.
How hard was it to get into that, everyone knows SQL, setup, and how much help did you get from management?
So our CEO kind of set the bar, said that we will not have a business analytics team. You will have to find your data however you need to get it. So when I joined at 70 people, half the company, I would say, was already had learned how to use SQL. And then we had a lot of pub crawls where we were learning SQL together, to be honest. And by the CEO and then our COO also really falling in line behind that. We're really not going to pull data for you. We're not going to spin up a team to be able to pull that data for you. And then in return, they asked really hard and difficult questions about the narrative that the stakeholders were producing. It caused everybody to want to be much more robust in their knowledge of how to pull that data. So it was very much top down, but it was also very much at the very beginning of the company's origin.
Is that in the hiring level, people in the business, do you require SQL in the hiring process?
Yeah, and so I'll repeat the first question, which was how we got to getting everyone to know SQL, and then now it's do we hire for that? Is that part of the hiring process? We do. We had originally started off hiring a lot more people who came in knowing SQL, and because we've had to scale so much, we didn't want to shortchange ourselves on getting subject matter experts in our different the marketing world. But upon hiring, people are given the ultimatum that you will learn SQL within 6 months, and
you'll like it.
And you're gonna love it, right? And that's why for us it just fits so well. SQL's the lowest entry point for people, I think, to get into more technical data manipulation, and the whole company, once we got onto it, again, there were some pub crawls involved, but which is really fun, SQLing while drinking. Since the whole culture, the majority of the people knew SQL, and then were either in the process of learning SQL, it just sort of spreads itself around.
Thank you. Thanks,